Hi there! HBO just released the full and final trailer for House of the Dragon Season 3. I'm gonna do a full breakdown of it, but that'll be over an hour long. For the sake of speed and focus, I'm dashing off a couple of shorter videos before that to skip ahead to the good stuff, focusing on the points that were new or surprising even to me, to the hardcore fan community who've been scrutinizing every filming report, every teaser trailer up to now. These are new things even we didn't know about. This specific video focuses on Aemond and Alys Rivers. Well, specifically that there is a shot in the trailer of Aemond giving Alys Rivers a dragon egg. You can tell it's Aemond not just from the long silver hair, but from the iconic dagger on his hip. And that's Alys Rivers. Well, at first I didn't recognize it, and others pointed out that if you turn up the brightness, that's not just a black gown, that's Alys Rivers' raven black hair flowing down over the front of her gown. And it's very recognizable if you turn the brightness up, plus that's her signature. She has this unique V-neck gown. They say it's an older style that she wears, so comparing shots, yes, this is clearly Alys Rivers. That's her long black hair. So this is unambiguous. I don't really need to cross-reference it with a bunch of other info. Well, maybe it's this. Maybe they're doing this with Byron Swan. No, just a few quick costume comparisons. This is Aemond. This is Alys Rivers. And unambiguously, he is handing her a dragon egg. This is interesting because it's actually not a big change from the book. Well, the book doesn't outright state this, but it is heavily implied that Aemond gave Alys Rivers a dragon egg at some point. Spoilers here, final spoiler warning, I'm going all out in this. The Fire and Blood sourcebook keeps on going after the Dance of the Dragons ends, and into the next prequel era. It's only one prequel era of several that are contained within the hardcover, this civil war that lasts for 2 years. It continues on in another 8 chapters into what's called either the Aftermath era or the Regency era. It's the first 6 full years of the reign of Rhaenyra's underage son. And the realm is in chaos. There's a Regency Council of 7 people in place with surviving leaders of both sides jockeying for power. So it's the Regent Wars. They're desperately trying to hold the realm together. Some of these storylines get wrapped up by the end, like with the Lannisters or with the Arryns, a couple of other things. Others are notably left hanging, because it abruptly ends when he turns 16. Legally, he's an adult. The Regency ends. Okay, this is the reign of Aegon III. And, well, what happens next? What happens to Baela and Rhaena and Alan and everything else? We have to wait for Fire and Blood Part 2, but probably the biggest thing left hanging that was set up was Alys Rivers. And the weirdest thing is, it's a full 6 years after the Civil War ended, and Alys Rivers this entire time has still been the functional ruler of this bandit kingdom around Harrenhal, not controlled by the crown. That post-war Westeros is chaos, the immediate aftermath, both sides fought to exhaustion, immediately followed by a bad winter and a plague, the winter fever. There's starvation everywhere, there's disease, there's bandits and broken men and deserters from armies preying on the countryside. And amidst all of that, gradually Alys Rivers accumulated more and more of them to her, coalescing at Harrenhal of these bandits and broken men and thieves, until she basically carves out this outlaw fiefdom, or mini-kingdom, on the lands of Harrenhal. But it's one of those situations where she was never the #1 top priority threat. There was always something else that got in the way. That the rest of Westeros always had bigger problems. That there was the plague, starvation. The fighting between the Ironborn and Lannisters on the West Coast never really ended. The war just kept going there for a while. And there's a civil war in the Vale, a wildling invasion in the north, and probably the biggest one is that to the east, the Triarchy breaks up in its own civil war, which soon drags in all of the other free cities and the Velaryons, and even independent Dorne. Meanwhile, all the members of that 7-person Regency Council are backbiting and intriguing and plotting against each other and undermining any solution to one of these problems because they don't want the other ones to succeed. And all of these court intrigues and everything, Harrenhal just falls through the cracks because it was never a direct threat to anyone like these other things were. And they don't really have enough men to spare to deal with it. And it's just such a cliche that Alys Rivers, who is this card-carrying witch, is ruling this spooky, haunted castle. She actually becomes known as Alys Rivers, the Witch Queen of Harrenhal. Kind of reminds me, not really the same thing with the Nazgul in Lord of the Rings, how the lead one becomes, he's the Witch King of Angmar. He wasn't really, a witch or wizard, he's a corrupted spirit, but she is literally a witch. She's the Witch Queen of Harrenhal and her witch kingdom, and the bats and everything. So the Iron Throne can't really spare enough men to deal with this. They can barely handle any of their other problems. Once they're able to send a handful of troops as a scouting mission, just to check out what's going on there, and they get repulsed. They all get killed, except for one scout sent back alive, with a message from her. And he says that Alys has a young son by her side, who she claims is Aemond's. And on top of that, the scout says he swears she has a dragon in there at Harrenhal with this boy. And right after he gives this message, the scout dies of a curse she put on him. So by the end of Fire and Blood, you get the feeling that we've only just begun the subplot being laid out with Alys Rivers and this, I'm thinking in King Arthur terms, this Mordred that she's raising there like Helen Mirren and Excalibur to eventually take on the Iron Throne with his own dragon. We'll have to wait and see for Fire and Blood Part 2. This will be a major storyline. With all that context, if you read the book, this isn't diverging from the book at all. Having a shot of Aemond giving Alys Rivers a dragon egg. If anything, this is a surprisingly setting up something from the book's shot. That this is probably because by the end of Season 3, she's carrying his child. They're probably going to mention that in dialogue. And there's also a line at a different part in the trailer where it's a voiceover, it doesn't match exactly, where Aemond says, "We'll make our own throne." Perhaps talking to Alys about, screw the rest of my family, I'm going to found my own dynasty with you and our child, based on the right of Aegon the Conqueror that I have the world's largest dragon. So this isn't a matter of arguing changes from book to TV show or anything. What's really interesting here are the wider implications of this for the future of the TV franchise. What does this say about HBO's confidence in it, of Ryan Condal's confidence in it? That, please, I want to see you talking about this directly in the comments. Think about it. They did not need to introduce this at all. You could have left out all of that at the end of the Dance of the Dragons in the book, in the final confrontation between Aemond and Daemon at God's Eye Lake, Alys Rivers is at his side and it says she is visibly pregnant. When that happens in Season 4, I started to think they'd cut that out to have a self-contained story rather than leave such a large plot thread dangling that the Greens have a male-to-male, direct heir male line ahead of Rhaenyra's children through Aemond's son, or something. I didn't think a TV show would actually do that, because you're basically doubling down on having a Regency show as a direct sequel. I was hoping we might see a pregnant Alys, possibly with a dragon egg, in Season 4. Instead, they're doing it as early as Season 3, at a time when everyone was really worried and backpedaling after Season 2 got hurt by the strike. Wow. This isn't red flags. This is the opposite of, alarm bells are going off. This is my spider senses tingling. In a good way. Really what this implies about how committed they are to the future of this as a franchise. Remember, after Season 1, we were all confident going, this will run 4 to 5 seasons, then we'll have a direct sequel Regency show which lasts another 4 to 5 seasons. I still think they could do that, if Season 3 is a hit. Because really, Regency Season 1 is House of the Dragon Season 5, that they talk about just continue the story. Obviously, the story of Rhaenyra and Daemon would wrap up, but other side characters would come to the fore. That the Velaryons are very important. Like, Alan would be very important, Baela and Rhaena trying to hold the realm together for their younger half-brother. It would shift more focus to the Starks and Lannisters, actually. They both get their own subplots, which are a little out of focus for the main Dance of the Dragon stuff. They don't even need Cregan for most of Season 2 or 3. Instead, Season 3 is, of course, introducing Black Aly Blackwood, who will later be Cregan Stark's wife and Lady of Winterfell. If they were just trying to rush this show out the door, they didn't need to introduce Black Aly. But I could say, well, she's a cool character, but even more than Black Aly, please talk about this in the comments, we're getting Torrhen Manderly in Season 3. They did not need to include that whatsoever. He becomes one of the members of the Regency Council. He's important during the Regency era as a political leader. Now we're seeing them setting up the dragon egg on top of everything. And that hasn't paid off in the 8 chapters that we got on the Regency era. There's roughly 2 chapters make a season at the rate they've been doing it. This is something that would come up in like Regency Season 4 or 5. That they'd have to invent stuff for, that they are really setting up down the line. And as I said before, I for one would really like a Regency show, because I'm saying, can we have a show that stars Abu Bakar Salim and Amanda Collin again? Like Raised by Wolves. Shout out in the comments if you're Raised by Wolves fans that Alan becomes the new head of House Velaryon and Corlys eventually dies of old age. Alan becomes the head and he's trying to hold the realm together. He's with the Regency Council. Jane Arryn is another member of the Regency Council. All this other stuff, work in the Starks and Lannisters more, which are fan favorites. It's just, you know how when Game of Thrones ended, so many people went, oh man, I want a Season 9. Can we have a direct sequel? And not only is there no source material, it wrapped up in such a way you couldn't. This show actually does have a direct sequel. You could just keep going. I mean, same for like Aegon's Conquest. I don't know how, I'm pretty sure they're planning to go through Maegor, but you could go through Jaehaerys if it's still successful. But really, Dance of the Dragons, yes, it's not like, oh, well, maybe we could cobble something together with Arya as a sequel. It has a direct sequel. It's a little more of an anthology spread out, but the groups it covers are fan favorites. The Starks, the Lannisters, the Velaryons, the Blackwoods. And this is our first real sign they are doubling down on that. That however wobbly we feel right now, a month out from the Season 3 premiere, when there's all these doubts from Season 2, that behind the scenes, HBO has already seen the rough cuts for Season 3 and they really like it. Who knows what they chose to include. Maybe they filmed this thing with the dragon egg, not knowing if they put it in or not last year. Showed the rough cuts to HBO, and they liked it so much they said, we're probably going to do a Regency show. And they liked it so much they put the scene back in the trailer of a dragon egg being given to Alys Rivers. As for who would be running this, well, Ryan Condal wouldn't be directly running it because he's talked about he's stepping back to an executive producer role. He's moving back to the United States. But just this past month, Ryan Condal renewed his contract with HBO through 2029. That if anyone's posting clickbait about, oh, and HBO is abandoning Condal and throwing him under the bus, no, if anything, the criticism is that Condal sided with HBO for pragmatic reasons, but HBO has expressed every confidence in Ryan Condal and has renewed his contract and stuff. I don't think he'd be the direct showrunner, though, but I think he's growing into the oversight position of like a Kevin Feige for Marvel, or the Dave Filoni of Star Wars, or the James Gunn of the DC Comics Cinematic Universe. And as part of organizing all of this, he's laying the groundwork for the later seasons of a Regency show, and the long-term threat of Alys Rivers and Mordred Targaryen, basically. Sorry, I keep thinking of the Excalibur movie that and I mentally picture this kid as what she did with Mordred in that. But this is good news, and I want to know what you all think of it. Is there some other way to interpret this other than, wow, they are really laying long-term groundwork with this?